Welcome back to the Fish Files. I'm still Randy, and we're standing in my wholesale little outfit. And today we have so many Goby species available for the retailers that I thought we'd kind of showcase some of them for the show. So today we're going to do freshwater gobies. Freshwater gobies are very attractive bottom-dwelling creatures that will hop around almost like land animals around the bottom of your aquarium. They're good scavengers, not known, except for a couple exceptions I'm going to be mentioning here, as good algae eaters, but a couple of them are. Like a lot of species in the freshwater, and probably all animal kingdom, the males are generally more attractive than the females. Sorry, ladies. And in this case, gobies are no exception. So I'm going to go right into the largest goby I got right now. These are interesting. These are prehistoric dragon gobies, or in the trade usually you'll just see dragon gobies, but they are from South America. They're wild caught, and they were prolific at one time when Walmart used to sell aquarium fish. Walmart used to sell most beginner tanks in the country. That's why, unfortunately, about 80% of the people that went into the aquarium hobby dropped out the first year because Walmart tanks were kind of deficient. But some of their fish were pretty nice. Maybe not the fish service or the fish upkeep or animal husbandry, but in a few stores you'd find some very thoughtful employees that really took good care of their tanks. But eventually that was harder and harder to find, and Walmart pulled out the fish from their stores. But at one point, Sam Walton, who founded Walmart, was a huge aquarium hobbyist, and he thought that was essential for any good department store to have a good live aquarium fish selection. So that was why they kept it maybe longer than they really needed to. And when I worked for Tetra, that was our #1 customer before Petco and PetSmart really came along. That's how old I am. Now, even Petco and PetSmart's selection of fish is not very good. They're more similar to what Walmart used to be. But they had one exception. They had the prehistoric dragon goby. Don't ask me why they decided on that. I don't know if it was because Sam Walton loved that particular fish, but everything else was so bread and butter it was boring. But they had this bizarre fish. And because of that, their system, they had to put salt in. These guys do great in aquariums, but they need a little bit of salt. 1 teaspoon to 10 gallons should do it. And so for that reason, they had to put a little salt in their entire aquarium system just for this one fish. And that was the only wild caught fish that they featured. And you know, it doesn't look like you're damaging fish when you chase them around, but they're not having fun. So you don't want to stress them out too much. You might get an ick outbreak. This guy comes from Brazil, Venezuela, Colombia. Generally, they're imported from Colombia, South America. And wild caught in swampy little areas. Beautiful fish, usually comes in about this size. They'll grow a couple inches larger. So this is the largest goby I have today, and it's probably, yeah, it is the largest freshwater goby you're going to see in the aquarium stores. He will eat fancy shrimp, but he won't touch tetras. He's a pretty safe community fish. And like I said, most gobies are good scavengers, so you don't have to worry too much about his diet. He'll eat leftover flake food and pellets that fall to the bottom. You don't have to figure out something special for him. And frozen foods, because he's mainly a carnivore. This is the prehistoric dragon goby. What I like in general about this goby family is it's the second largest family in the aquatic zoology system. It's Gobidae. Cyprinidae is the largest family, just so you know, but that means there's 2,000 gobies available to the trade. Very few of them are available to the aquarium hobby. Most are wild caught. This is another one that's wild caught. It's seasonal. These come from India, and they're the little bumblebee goby. Bumblebee gobis is very obvious how they got their name. They look like little bumblebees. They grow to about 1.5 inches and get much more fat than these guys. These are juveniles. This is a small size of them. I've actually got them in even smaller. Preferably you get them a little bit larger than this, but like I said, it's seasonal. This is the size they are right now, so this is a size you'll find in the aquarium store. Later on, around Christmas time, you'll see some good size ones. This is called the Bumblebee Gobi. But like I said, there's 2,000 available species. In the aquarium hobby, there's only a couple dozen for the freshwater side. There's a couple hundred on the saltwater side. That's really where you see a lot more gobies available, like the Mandarin goby and all those guys. Freshwater gobies while not as colorful, still have the same bottom-dwelling characteristics as their saltwater cousins. A little note on Bumblebee Gobis. They are slightly brackish. So just like the prehistoric dragon goby, and I'll warn you which ones are brackish and which ones aren't, because if you don't have a little salt in with the, especially when they're juveniles, a little salt in that tank, then you're going to get, you could get a little fungus on them. So they're not prone to ick, but they're prone to fungus for some reason. 1 teaspoon of salt to 10 gallons, 1 tablespoon to 20 gallons wouldn't hurt. If you have a serious planted tank, then don't go for brackish gobies. Go for 100% freshwater gobies, and I'll show you some of those, like the Stiphodons and so forth, in a few minutes. I will say another note on these guys is that they're good with nano species, and at their mature size, you can even put them in with rams and medium-sized cichlids, but at this size I wouldn't do that. But they are good with shrimp, other nano, like rasboras. They won't harm them, and somewhat active. Not active like loaches, but they'll move around a little bit around your rocks and your plants in your tank. Not schoolers though. You don't need to get a whole pack of these to school around together. They'll tend to just go around on their own, which surprises me since they're usually small fish tend to school for safety purposes. Next we have a very interesting goby because it is the world's most popular goby at the moment and has been probably for the last 10 years. It's called the Gara Rufa. They're also called the spa goby, the Turkish foot cleaner goby. They're ugly and they grow to about 3 inches. That's why you don't see them that much in the aquarium hobby, which is unfortunate because they're very active, very, very hardy, and really, really good algae eaters. But they're not the prettiest goby. They stay kind of a drab brown with a little mottled black pattern on them. But what they do is eat the dead skin cells off of your fingers and toes. So these became very popular in Turkey, where they're native to the streams in Turkey. For the European spas, you could go, the Turkish foot gobies would eat all the skin, dead skin off and polish up all your feet at these spas. Well, that moved on to Asia, and now all the world's Turkish foot gobies are bred in Asia for the spa trade. It's actually illegal where I am in California to sell these for spas because they consider it unhygienic, but most states it's legal, and in all parts of the world, as far as I know, it's legal. Obviously, it is legal in Mexico. If you ever go down to Cabo San Lucas or any of those places, there'll be little spa centers, and they'll have little bowls like this big that you put your feet in, and these guys come in and just eat up all that stuff. I brought them in at thousands at a time, and for fun, stuck my foot in the tank, and they wouldn't do anything. So I think there might be some training involved, or maybe I'd overfed them, but I couldn't get them to go after my feet. Next time we get a big shipment for SeaWorld, where we supply those displays, we'll try that experiment, because there's nothing like seeing 3,000 of these guys in a big tank, and maybe they'll be hungry that time. I hope they don't eat my foot off. But these are the Gara Rufa foot, mainly they're called foot doctor fish in the trade, but Gara Rufa Goby, and again, terrific algae eaters. Oh, one other good thing about these is since they grow to 3 inches, you can put them in with cichlids. They're not very expensive. Like I said, they're great scavengers and algae eaters, and they're 100% fresh water. So you don't need to throw any salt in. So they're also good for a planted aquarium, but you know, it's a planted aquarium. They don't contrast too well with the wood and the dark gravel that you usually see in those tanks, so you might lose them. I'm gonna put my finger in and see what happens. Let's see if, look, food, nothing. Maybe it's just me. Food. Maybe I don't have dead skin. Maybe like I'm like really clean, and that's why they don't do it. I like to think that's the reason. Here's one in the trade that is known as a great algae eater as well as a scavenger. He's just not sold as much because it's a little more on the expensive side. These gobies usually retail for, or most gobies will retail for around $10 to $12. These guys will be low 20s, $19 to $22, $23. It's called the Panda Gara, Panda Goby, Gara flavrata, but most people just call it the Panda Gara. It's a kind of a, I don't know why it's panda because it's got broad bands, but it's not really a panda pattern like I'm used to seeing in the aquarium hobby. I guess it's as close to a panda goby as we got in the freshwater side. So someone wanted to apply the name to that one. But common name, scientific name stays the same, Gara flavrata. This is a interesting little fish because it will grow to 4 inches. At this size, which I like to bring in for wholesale, you can find it retail for around that $10 to $12 range. But as soon as it gets to 2-3 inches, the price goes up. In the aquarium hobby, usually the price, if you're a 1-inch fish and it's $2, if you want a 2-inch fish, it's $6. It goes up threefold each time it doubles in size. So there's because of time, it's not just the cost of shipping, it's also the time in growing that fish to size. Depends on the fish. Clown loaches are even worse. Just so you know, when you go in a fish store and you see an expensive size, expensive price for a particular fish, that you say, well, I could get it like this on Amazon or eBay or Petco or PetSmart.com. Well, it might be the size. So double check when you're shopping. All right, now I want to get into the Stiphodon. I want to start with the most popular of the gobies because now it's tank raised in Indonesia. Most Stiphodon Gobis, it's a small class of gobies that only grow to 3 inches. They're slim. They usually have some reflective coloring on them. They're red, blue, gold. Very popular with people with planted aquariums because they do pop when they have a dark background. The lighting is not great in here. Hopefully our wonderful producer can capture the blue stripe that's on this neon blue Stiphodon Gobi. They are a very hardy class of gobies. Scavengers, they won't really do anything for your algae, but because they're scavengers, like most scavengers, they're hardy. They don't need any special food. They can eat the leftover pellets and flake food from your aquarium, and great again for planted tanks. They don't need any salt. They will be fine with fancy shrimp, all other small species, and they're large enough to handle themselves with mid-sized fish, gouramis, large gouramis, mid-size to dwarf cichlids. But I wouldn't put them in with larger African cichlids or South American cichlids or obviously any monster fish. But good community, mid-sized to small aquarium fish. I want to mention something about Google Pictures because we do fulfillment for fish for people. You know, when you go into a fish store, you see exactly what you get. When you buy online, and we do fulfillment for a couple online stores, you see these Google Mail perfect lighting in heat fish, and you expect that to be what it looks like right out of the bag, and that's not what they're going to look like. They're going to look like this. So if you Google neon blue Stiphodon Gobi, you're going to see it in perfect lighting, sitting on a rock, usually with a broad blue stripe right along the body. You will get it at certain angles in the aquarium tank. Just it's hard to get from the angles with the little flashlight I got. And like I said, these are both males, but they have to be really in heat to really show a bright blue line on there. I'm just going to interrupt the Stiphodon presentation to show a new goby I've been starting to sell last couple months. It's been very popular because this is max size, and it's just great in planted tanks, regular aquarium tanks. It could be brighter colors, and it has a great little tiger pattern. It's called the micro tiger goby. And it's a very elongated bottom flat fish that just goes around, scavenges, not going to take care of any algae, but really great for nano tanks. So we have like the anchor catfish. We went through some small catfish that you could put in small tanks. This is one of those gobies that you could put in even the smallest aquarium, and it'll do very well. So it's shipping in, because it's a wild caught goby, sometimes it's a bit fragile and takes us about a week before we know it's stable enough to ship out. But once it gets to that point, it's a good fish. So sorry for that little segue. That's the wrong word. Sorry for that little distraction. But I wanted to show the micro tiger raspberries, micro tiger gobies. But this one's really a neat Stiphodon. Back to the Stiphodon Gobi. These are red lipstick gobies, and they actually have red lips. I don't know, I haven't seen them. They probably have them. Like there's 2,000 gobies. These come from Indonesia, like the other Stiphodon gobies. Freshwater only. So you don't need to add a little salt with these guys. Great for planted tanks. These are almost 3 inches, so these are about full grown. And what's distinct about them is a little red on their body and red lips. hence their name Lipstick Gobi. And they are great scavengers. They won't clean your tank. They're too small for that. They won't eat algae. They might a little bit, but it's not a big piece of their diet. But they do look beautiful, and they will be a nice lively scene on the bottom of the tank because they'll hop around like little lizards. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Gobies are like little lizards on the bottom of your fish tank. So these guys are also wild caught, but they're found all over in streams in Papua New Guinea, so I get a chance to get these in every single week. They retail for around $24, but worth every penny. I don't know if they have blue lipstick or Chula black lipstick, but they do have a lot of red lipsticks in the wild. Okay, two more Stiphodons you find in the hobby fairly often. One's the gold spot Stiphodon and one's the neon red Stiphodon. For brevity's sake, I just went and grabbed the gold spot. The neon red Stiphodon has a little, compared to the red lipstick goby, has a little more red on the body, but doesn't have the red lips. And a lot of people like that fish that's really into freshwater gobies in the trade because it's harder to find. It's wild caught, and man, half the time I ship them in, they turn out to just be red lip gobies again. But I don't have any in the warehouse now, but I do have gold spot Stiphodon Gobis. Again, from Indonesia, different area, but different island. But these are similar shape and size as a whole Stiphodon family. They have a gold spot primarily on their head with little gold flecks on their body, and primarily only on their head. And they are, again, just like other Stiphodons, very hardy, freshwater only, great for planted tanks, good for small to medium-sized community fish tanks. At 3 inches, nano tanks, 3 inches, 3 gallons and up would be fine, but small beta tanks, they may be a little too large for that. And when I say small beta tanks, I'm talking about half gallon, gallon size, small little tanks. So anyways, this is the gold spot Stiphodon Goby. So I'm not sure 100% these are truly gold spot Stiphodon Gobis. I'm going to have to compare them to the literature I have. If they're not, what I do in these cases is call it Stiphodon SP for species and sell them for about the same amount, because in a way it makes them even more interesting. Some wild caught unknown Stiphodon species. They're probably juvenile female Stiphodon, gold spot Stiphodon Gobis though, and that's why we're not seeing the gold spot. Anyways, let's go on. Let's do a larger, cooler goby. These are the Dance Gobis. Dance Gobis, they're also called night gobies. And if you look at their profile, you can kind of visualize a proud knight with his holding his sword, and maybe, but it's easy to visualize them as, because night goby is K-N-I-G-H-T, not night as in good night. They're also called Dance Gobi, the other common name, because you can also visualize a dance stripper. I've never seen one, but you've seen them on TV, and they have the fans and they go like this, and so they're called Dance Gobis as well. Probably a more common name for them is the Dance Gobi. But you can see their fins coming out around their body and giving a nice little display. So that's it's a pretty goby with a long scientific name, but it's more commonly just called the Dance Gobi, and you'll find it. You won't find it in most pet stores. If you request them, they can usually ship them in from wholesalers like me. So remember, go to your local aquarium store and say, I know somewhere where I can get the Dance Gobi. Actually, I'm not going to say, because I'm not here to push our wholesale place, so I'm not going to, I don't want you to do that. Just go in and say, find one from one of the really good, reputable wholesalers without saying my name. Like most cool gobies, Dance Gobis come from the Indonesian islands, and they are wild caught, but very easy to get. I can usually bring these in every month or so. They've got some available for me. They look more expensive than they are. Typically they'll sell for around $20, $24 retail. Hard to find them in the aquarium store, but if you ask, one of those reputable aquarium fish wholesalers can get it over to them. This is a good example. This is the purple spot goby. It's a freshwater, 100% freshwater goby, hardy, wild caught, and he comes up on the trade for whatever reason. I don't know what the seasonality issues are in Indonesia on the purple spot goby, but it only comes up every couple years, and when it's available for a while. These are juvenile, so the reason I like this particular selection is that you won't see purple spots. We're going to do some close-ups on it, but you do when it's another inch. It's a really beautiful fish, and when you look it up on Google, you're going to see these purple spots, purple spot goby. Oh, I want that for my fish tank. Then you go to to one of the people like I fulfill for, say, aquariumfish.com. They usually carry all these oddball fish, but you get them in the size you can get them in. So you're going to get these. It'll say 1-inch size, but you're looking at Google, which and showing these 3-inch beautiful male purple spot gobies, and you get a juvenile that doesn't have any spots yet. You know, what's this? Watch the size. When you buy online, carefully look at the size, look at the Google picture you're looking at, look at the size, look up the fish, because these fish will grow and look like those pictures. Often it's not going to be what you get when you first open the bag. So please, I don't want anyone disappointed in this hobby, because all these fish are wonderful. Even the drab ones have personality. These guys have a lot of color and personality. They just don't when they're juveniles. So don't be disappointed when you buy online. And when you go to the fish store, you'll see purple spot gobies, and they won't have a tag, usually a picture of what it looks like as maturity. So there's a disadvantages in going to the fish store as well, unless you go to a good fish store where the clerk, do people still use the word clerk? Account manager? What do you call a person that helps you in the store now? Salesperson?
Sales associate.
How about sales associate? Yeah, that's good. The sales associate helps you with that fish. He really needs to know what it's going to look like in maturity to do a proper sale and let you envision what it's going to look like in your fish tank in a year. Because most fish, if you really want to do a good job with your aquarium, you want to get something a little undersized so it grows into your aquarium, and that kind of makes you a little more, makes it a better pet. Anyways, but this is a juvenile purple spot goby. But producer, would you be able to find like a mature one to? Okay, he's shaking his head. Yeah. Okay. Producer just asked me if the purple spots are all over the body. They're not. They're generally down the lateral line area of the fish, and they're subtle. They're not bright purple spots like you'd get in a saltwater fish. Freshwater fish are, as opposed to saltwater fish, I mentioned it on an earlier show, where they evolved and they had to see each other across the corals to find each other and breed. So saltwater fish evolved with these really bright, magnificent colors. Not the same with freshwater fish. Gobies developed in little ponds, and they needed to hide from fish that would eat them. But they still needed to recognize each other, so they came up with a compromise. I guess God did over time, or Darwin, or they got together. So they decided to have some spots so they'd recognize each other, but not so bright that the predators would find them. So yeah, now it's not bright purple spots all over the body. You know, Google it. What's neat though about gobies, even if they just sit on a rock for a couple hours, it's still odd to see something sit on a rock that's in it, you know, in your aquarium. Like I said, it's almost like having lizards on the bottom of your fish tank. So they're really for community fish, because they have such a different habitat and habit of moving around. They're really a nice addition, because they have you have the schools of fish, you have top dwellers, you have some bottom fish feeders, but to have something that acts like a goby is a nice addition. So right after I was talking about how you don't get a lot of bright, pretty colors, in gobies you do in a few gobies, and one of them is the banded Morgunda. The Morgunda, Gobis Morgunda, Gobis Morgunda, comes from Indonesia again, grows to 4 inches, pretty thick, and has striping and beautiful purple colors all over its body. But at this size, which is even smaller than juvenile, it has nothing. So that's one where you definitely have to do your research before you're going to go ahead and invest. Even at this size, it's probably about $20. As it grows, you're going to be paying $40, $50, $60 for a fuller, colorful size Morgunda goby. But this is the juvenile size. I've seen it in our big breeder tanks. We have tanks where you can just catch fish, and so the lighting's not so great. We just need to see the fish to catch them. Yeah, there's nothing. You can't see the pattern in here at all. So producer, can you do that thing again? Both the males and the females are very colorful, very pretty. So don't worry that you can't sex them at this size. You're still, regardless of what sex you get, it's going to be a very colorful fish in your aquarium. But yeah, again, that's one, when we do fulfillment, please don't get disappointed if you ask for a banded Morgunda and go, where's the bands? It's juvenile. They're not going to have them. So when they're only come in an inch, which is what this size is, they're bland. I should talk to the other online stores. We really need to do a better job, I think, of expectations, so so that the customer knows what they're going to get. But they will grow to what you want. And price-wise, you save so much money when you buy a fish at the juvenile stage, whether it's a cichlid or a goby or an angelfish, and let it grow in your fish tank. And then you'll really appreciate it, and you'll know you made those colors pop with the way you took care of it and fed it and so forth. So I'd recommend juvenile sizes unless you absolutely are ready for a show tank and need it right away for your mahjong party. So if you like this episode, or any of them, even if you don't like this episode but liked one of the others, please like and subscribe. And my producer says, and ring the bell for notification. I don't know what that means. And we'll see you in the next episode.